Here's an old classic, The Boy Who Could Fly. This is the background on this is it was released in 1986. It's rated PG, it's a drama and fantasy. This is a classic 80s film that has multiple layers to it. At its core, we have the friendship aspect to it, and we also have this dealing with grief. However, there's also, Helen Keller aspects to the show. There's Superman layers to it, and notes, I'd say. And there's each character kind of has their challenges as well. The story kind of starts off with the mom and her two children, Millie and Lewis. They're moving into a new neighborhood. Their father, as we learned throughout the film, has died. He had cancer, however, there's more to it. And because of that, the characters are kind of like wrestling with the trauma of that situation. The mom, Charlene, is starting a new job and struggling to use a computer. This is kind of a very 80s kind of dilemma with PCs. They were first kind of introduced kind of heavily into the workforce at that time. So that's the reason I think in a lot of these 80 movies that was the thing, was like, oh, I'm operating a computer and it's a challenge for them. Which just doesn't mean anything to people, younger people at all, because they wouldn't see that. Now, however, Millie, she gravitates towards her strange neighbor Eric, who kind of sits outside a window, kind of pretending to fly. Wants to kind of see if he can fly for some reason. Lewis, however, he's big into the military, and he has a goal to ride his big wheel around the block. He's stopped by a group of punks. When I first watched this in the late 80s, I'm really related to Lewis and his quest. I never had a big wheel, but they were popular. I could totally understand, having to work that out. I could see that being, big dilemma for Lewis here. Yeah, most of the movie revolves around Millie, who's working with Eric. She sees something more in Eric than everybody else sees, and so she wants to kind of work with him, try to help him to talk. They can also see that she has a better connection than any of the doctors or anything, so... But Eric, he doesn't talk, and he's disconnected with reality. Today, they would call him more autistic. However, back in the 80s, it was rare that anybody said anything about autism or anything, or talked about it. It just wasn't a word. When I watched it years ago as a young, in my younger days, I just assumed that Eric was like that because of his past, where his parents died when he was 5 in a plane crash, and his uncle was a drunk, so he just withdrew into his own fantasy world. I kind of feel like that's most of what's going on. However, Eric can fly, and this is revealed later in the show, and it causes all the characters to kind of believe that anything's possible. It kind of changes all their attitudes and kind of lifts their lives up for the better. I rate this movie a 3 out of 4 stars. It didn't do well in the box office, however, it's well constructed and well written. And I think they did a good job with acting it and everything else. I think it was a hidden gem of the 80s. It's an entertaining show with heart and character. It somehow stays within its own world, which I feel is lacking in a lot of movies today. I think it's more coherent, and so you can kind of get into that world without being taken out of it. I definitely recommend this one.